Everyone says there's more than one right way to build a woodworking project. You see it in the comments all the time. You should have used pocket holes. Or why didn't you just use screws? It seems like for every project there are a dozen different opinions on how it should be put together. But which one is actually worth your time? Is the fastest method good enough? Is the most complicated method really any stronger? I mean, we've all been there staring at a pile of wood, wondering if we're making a future family heirloom or just expensive firewood. So, I decided to put it to the test, with science. Well, woodworking science. I built the same side table 5 different ways to find out which joinery method is truly the best. We're talking about a full-on battle royale of joinery. We've got the quick and easy, the YouTube famous, the old school classic, and a few others in between. My workshop has been an absolute disaster zone for weeks, with sawdust and wood glue covering literally everything. My dog is starting to look like a furry biscuit joint, but it's all for a good cause, to finally get a definitive answer. The rules for this experiment are simple. Same wood, beautiful solid white oak, same design, a clean modern side table that looks good pretty much anywhere. The only thing that changes is the construction method. We're going to compare them on speed, difficulty, looks, and, of course, the most important part, strength. We're going to push these tables to their absolute breaking point to see which one can take the most abuse. Will the old ways prove to be the best, or will a modern shortcut take the crown? Let's find out. First up, we have the undisputed champion of speed and simplicity, good old screws and glue. If you've ever put together flat-pack furniture or built something for your garage in a single afternoon, you know this method well. You just cut your pieces, slather on some wood glue for good measure, and then drive a screw straight through one piece and into the other. It's fast, it's straightforward, and the tools are incredibly basic. A drill and a driver bit are pretty much all you need to get the job done. For this table, the entire assembly process, from laid-out parts to a standing table, took less than 30 minutes. It's almost suspiciously easy. The beauty of this method is its accessibility. There's no complex math, no fancy jigs, and no waiting around for intricate glue-ups to dry in stages. You just build. It's instant gratification in woodworking form. You can see your project come to life right before your eyes. However, as I was driving in the last screw, I couldn't shake a certain feeling. You know that little wobble you get from cheap furniture? This table had it. It felt temporary. The joints are held together by the threads of a screw-and-end grain, which is notoriously weak. The glue helps, but you just know those connections aren't as solid as they could be, and that's the big trade-off. What you gain in speed, you lose in confidence. Over time, as the wood expands and contracts with changes in humidity, those screws can start to loosen their grip. The joint will get wobbly, and you'll have to tighten things up again and again. Plus, you've got those visible screw heads. You can countersink them and fill them with wood putty, but you can always tell. It just screams, "I built this quickly," not "I built this to last." It's a functional table for sure, but it doesn't feel like a piece of high-quality furniture. It feels like it has an expiration date. Next, we're stepping it up to the method you've probably seen in 90% of DIY woodworking videos on YouTube. Tardid-one vertizan mayo. The pocket hole. This technique is a clever evolution of the simple screw. Instead of driving the screw straight in, you use a special jig to drill a hole at a steep angle. This allows the screw to go into the much stronger face grain or edge grain of the adjoining piece of wood. It's a massive upgrade in strength compared to just driving a screw into the end grain. The jig makes the process surprisingly foolproof, ensuring you get a perfect angle every single time. It's still really fast, adding only a few extra minutes for drilling the pockets. The assembly process feels much more robust. As you drive the pocket hole screws, they act like tiny clamps, pulling the joint together with incredible force. You can feel the connection cinch up tight, and the result is a table that is immediately more rigid and stable than the simple screw and glue version. There's virtually no wobble right off the bat. It's a huge confidence booster, and it explains why this method is so popular. You get a really strong joint with a process that's almost as fast and easy as using regular screws. It feels like you're getting away with something, like a secret woodworking cheat code, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. You're left with these big, ugly, oval-shaped holes all over your project. Now, The idea is to place them on the inside or underside of your project where they won't be seen. For our table, I could hide most of them, but the ones on the aprons were tricky. You can buy special plugs to fill them, but they never match the grain perfectly. You can fill them with putty and sand them, but you can almost always spot the repair. It takes a significant amount of extra finishing work to make them disappear, and even then, a trained eye will find them. So you have a choice: a strong, quickly built table with some cosmetic blemishes, or a lot of extra time spent on tedious cover-up work. Now we're moving into the world of traditional joinery with dowels. This is where things start to feel like real woodworking. Instead of screws, we're connecting the wood with, well, more wood. The idea is to drill perfectly aligned holes into both pieces you want to join, and then connect them with a small fluted wooden pin called a dowel. When you add glue, the dowel swells up and the glue creates an incredibly strong bond, locking the two pieces together as if they were one. There are no visible fasteners, just clean, seamless joints. It's a huge step up aesthetically, but this elegance comes at a cost, precision, and patience. Unlike pocket holes where the jig does most of the thinking for you, doweling requires careful layout and marking. If your holes are off by even a fraction of a millimeter, the pieces won't line up and your project will be a disaster. I used a self-centering doweling jig, which helps immensely, but it still demands a slower, more methodical approach. You have to measure twice, check your marks, drill carefully, and then do a dry fit before you even think about reaching for the glue bottle. This assembly took significantly longer than the first two. The payoff, however, is immense. Once the glue is dry and the clamps come off, the table feels completely different. It's not just sturdy, it feels monolithic. When you pick it up, it doesn't creak or flex. It feels like a single, solid object. The joints are practically invisible, giving it the look of high-end, professionally made furniture. Running your hand over the corner where the leg meets the apron, you feel nothing but a smooth, uninterrupted surface. This is the first table that truly feels like it could be passed down through generations. It required more skill and time, but the result is a piece you can be genuinely proud of. Our fourth contestant is the biscuit joint. This method is a bit of a modern marvel, popularized in the latter half of the 20th century. It involves using a special tool called a biscuit joiner, which is basically a small circular saw that plunges into the wood to cut a crescent-shaped slot. You cut matching slots in the two pieces you want to join, apply glue to the slots and the wood, and then insert a compressed beechwood biscuit. The moisture from the glue causes the biscuit to swell inside the slot, creating a surprisingly tight-fitting joint. It's a fascinating process to watch. The biggest advantage of the biscuit joiner is alignment. It is absolutely fantastic for joining panels or making sure wide surfaces are perfectly flush, like for a tabletop. For the legs and aprons of our side table, it made lining everything up incredibly easy. You just line up your marks, make the plunge cut, and you know the faces of your two boards will be perfectly aligned. It's faster than laying out and drilling for dowels, and it feels a bit more forgiving. If your cut is slightly off left or right, the biscuit still allows for a little bit of wiggle room to get the joint perfect before you clamp it down. However, when it came to the final strength, I was a bit underwhelmed. While the biscuit is great for alignment, it doesn't provide a lot of structural mechanical strength on its own. It's mostly just a clever, self-clamping glue surface. The joint relies almost entirely on the power of the wood glue. The finished table felt solid, certainly better than the screw-only version, but it didn't have that rock-solid, immovable feeling of the doweled table. It felt more like a very, very well-glued butt joint. It's a fantastic technique for certain applications, like cabinet boxes or panel glue-ups, but for a structural joint that needs to resist racking forces, it felt like a slight step down from the dowel. Finally, we arrive at the final boss of woodworking joinery, the mortise and tenon. This technique has been used for thousands of years for a reason. It's been found in ancient Egyptian furniture and timber frame buildings that are still standing today. The concept is simple. You cut a square or rectangular hole, the mortise, into one piece of wood and a corresponding tongue, the tenon, on the end of the other. The tenon fits snugly into the mortise, creating a massive amount of long-grained glue surface, which is the strongest wood-to-wood bond possible. This is, without a doubt, the most time-consuming and skill-intensive method of the 5. There are no shortcuts here. Cutting a good mortise and tenon requires sharp tools, incredible precision, and a whole lot of practice. I used a combination of a drill press to remove the bulk of the waste for the mortise and a very sharp chisel to clean up the walls. The tenons were cut carefully, on the table saw, with a dado stack. Every single joint had to be custom fit, slowly paring away slivers of wood until the tenon slid into the mortise with just the right amount of friction, not too tight, not too loose. This table took an entire day to build. But the result? Oh man, the result is on another level entirely. When you slide that tenon into the mortise, even without glue, the joint is already strong. It clicks into place with a satisfying thud. Once glue is applied and the joint is clamped, it becomes permanent. Unbreakable. The finished table feels like it was carved from a single block of granite. There is zero flex, zero wobble, zero doubt. This isn't just a piece of furniture, it's a statement. It feels indestructible. This is how you build something that will last for centuries. It takes an incredible amount of work, but the payoff is a joint that is, for all practical purposes, perfect. So after 5 tables, a mountain of sawdust, and one very serious strength test involving way too many cinder blocks, what did we learn? As you probably guessed, the mortise and tenon table was the undisputed champion of strength. Only one method stayed rock solid, no matter what I did to it. It was, by every measure, the best joint. But here's the thing. The best method isn't always the one you should use. If I'm building a quick shelf for my garage, am I going to spend a day cutting mortise and tenons? Absolutely not. I'm grabbing the drill and some screws, and it'll be done in an hour. The real takeaway here is that each of these methods is a tool, and you need to pick the right tool for the job. The pocket hole table was surprisingly strong and incredibly fast to build, making it perfect for a lot of DIY projects. The dowel joint offered that clean, high-end look without the insane time commitment of the mortise and tenon, making it a fantastic middle ground. Even biscuits have their place for perfect alignment in panel glue-ups. The goal isn't to always use the strongest, most complicated joint possible. The goal is to understand the trade-offs between speed, appearance, and strength. Ultimately, great woodworking isn't about blindly following trends or dogma. It's about being intentional with your choices. Choose your joinery based on the purpose of the project, not just because it's what everyone on YouTube is doing. Are you building a temporary jig or a family heirloom? How much time do you have? What tools are available to you? Answering those questions will lead you to the right joint every single time. That's how you make builds that not only look good, but are built to last exactly as long as they need to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.